Peace and blessings, y'all. This is your boy Gerald. It is Friday. You on the backside of your weekend. You on the backside of your week. Excuse me. It's getting ready to step into your weekend. And I hope that you are well wherever you are. Hopefully you have sidestepped the negative by grounding your feet, by placing God first. But most importantly, speaking your truth. Now, if you looked at the title, you probably wonder, well, Gerald, why'd you put that title the way it is? Well, it's because I just got off a phone call. And it's also the reason why, one of the reasons I'm tapping into my emotional crutch, which I've got a couple days left because it's a wrap after this month, y'all. I can show you better than I can tell you. But I'm gonna smoke on this one. I just got off the phone, making a phone call out in California. For some who've been riding with my journey, when it comes to LOVE, it's not been real easy for your man because I am a big hearted guy. And through my journey, I've had to learn to see my worth. I've learned how to be more still. I've learned to find peace in chaos, how to deal with the word no. This is why I share this with you. And there are very few things that I'm unconditionally passionate about. And one of them, well, there's two things. The number one thing is my devotion to God. Because without God, I know unequivocally I wouldn't be where I am because of that old devil. I know that I probably would have ended up doing something foolish, something impulsive, robbing me of my life, aligning me with people that would not have seen my value, and not being able to tap into my discernment that has protected me through it all. Because sometimes, y'all, it's going to rain in your life. That's right. And the sooner that you come to to embrace that fact, the more prepared you'll be. Now, I say that for another reason. The second thing that I'm passionate about is what I do not have possession of. And I don't mean that as control, because it's not what I mean. The second thing I've been passionate about is my daughter. And my daughter will be 18 years old this May. And I have not physically been a part of her maturing into adulthood. And I know there's some guys out there that are selfish. I'm gonna call a spade, dog. And truth of the matter is because whoever was your influence, your inspiration, your living constant failed you. So they didn't give you the tools needed. So when the task was required, you could fulfill it. That's why the term Lost Boys came about, which only would morph into bad boys, which would only turn into thug. Now, I don't know what it is now, but it there's no growth in it because it's degenerative. But I know that in the intended time and moment, you can make yourself new. You can turn back the hands of time. But the only way you can do that is you got to be real with yourself. That means you've got to unconditionally love yourself. Now, let's not negate why I'm putting this video out. Because I know, Queen, there are countless people out there. There are countless bad examples of what fatherhood is. But it doesn't negate the fact that that's still somebody's daddy. And that's why I've always been a strong proponent of letting you know that's not your burden by yourself. Two children can't raise a child. So it's very important and very imperative that you grow. And the only way you're going to grow is that you get to know you. How can you see your value and worth if you don't know you? You hear this constantly play out. You see it smeared on TV. You see it play out in media. You always see Mary weeping. Why are you weeping, Mary? Because Mary's lost. She's trying to navigate her life to rules she know nothing about, only to inherit the scars of disappointment, the bruises of rejection, and the environment that is deflected. These are the things that make up what we know as a generational curse, y'all. Because what is a curse? The spoken word. But really is nothing but knowledge that has been perverted, not protected. So the cycle perpetuates itself. The boy grows up to be a man, but he doesn't know how to be a father because he doesn't know himself. Only to cast his seed to recreate time and extension of him. You realize how different the world would be if the world gave a damn about themselves? You realize how different the world would be if people would have the courage to say no? You realize how different the world would be if people would not be afraid of their truth? Some people are terrified of that because if they weren't, they wouldn't run from their lives. But you can't run from you. You can change the zip codes, but you can't run from the wounds until you decide to ground your feet to let the healing begin. So today, I decided to call out to California, to the courts. Now, I unfortunately know that there are countless people, both men and women, actually more women that try to get out and support their child. See that play out all the time. But the example is always the man. And I know my daughter's birthday is coming up later in the year. And I know by law that when she turns 18, I'm not obligated to render financial support. Now, mind you, I'm not a deadbeat by a long shot because the amount of support I render, I should have 3 children. I only have 1. She's my firstborn. And that should tell you that I love her so much that I haven't had any because I knew that I wanted that bond made whole because of who I am. I'm the torch of knowledge that she needs to know for her generation. And I'm determined that that is passed on. Chris Rock once said, it doesn't matter what a man's occupation is, his number one responsibility to his daughter is to keep her from the pole. You do know he was speaking truth, right? Because there's a lot of little girls out there that emulate the lady that walks the night and thinks that is the road to success, only paved by tears and shame. But yet, to deflect, they act like boys, hoping that they too can grow to be men. But you can't be what you were not created to be, no matter what law or statute is given. Because, see, I also know that there's a deeper agenda going on. There's people that look just like you that don't want you around. There's people that don't look like you that want you gone. And this doesn't have to do with being prejudiced. This is about population control. And that is why the paradigm that you live in is the way it is. Because look at our food, how it's prepared. Look at the health risks that are compounded daily by lack of knowledge. Do you not see the signs? But the real question should be asked, why should I expect you to do so if you don't know you? So I jumped on YouTube, right? Jumped on YouTube and I put in the search engine last child support. I just put that in the search engine to see what will come up, right? And there were fathers. This ain't shade. This is just questioning. There were shades. This isn't shade. But there was a question from my heart, and I actually responded to one. And I posed this question: when the monetary responsibility bell has been tolled, does the support and love as you, her father, ring on? Because far too many times we, as fathers, mothers, want to put a price tag, want to ransom the innocence of our children, only to inflict more pain, not only to the person, but to the lineage. Why don't we think about the lineage? Huh? Why do we overlook that? Because the fact of the matter is that means you would have to take accountability of the person you chose to bear your child. So, picked up the phone. I looked at it for a second. It's right here. I got up and, like, breaking open, what do you call those things that like a time capsule? You know what I'm talking about, like time capsule. See, every little document in regards to my daughter, I have, along with every picture, every card, I have. And the years come and the years go. But you know what doesn't change, y'all? My love for my daughter and the respect I have for her because, see, I could have been like them and had countless kids. You know what I'm saying? I could have did that. You know, I always envisioned myself to have at least three. You know, I want my little stair steps. But the fact of the matter was, see, 18 years ago there was a serviceman with good intentions, with a big heart, that got taken advantage of. And instead of taking the road that was low, I decided to dig my boots and stay faithful no matter what. Even gave my last name to a person that, that didn't love me, or we barely loved each other. But I was under the impression and belief that I know that with anything, as long as there is dedication, the things you don't know, you will learn because the commitment is there. Sure, it lasted for 9 years until one day I came home from work and it was written in her eyes. She could not hold the rules anymore. See, there are certain things you have no control of, and one is making a person love you back. And I want to convey this to somebody. You cannot make anyone do anything they don't want to do. And the more that you try, the more kickback you're going to get. There are some people that come into your life to only serve as a point of reference or navigation on the direction you are going to go. That does not mean that's where you are to stay. That's for somebody. So, I, not to ramble, so I'm on, I put that in YouTube and I saw these videos of these guys that were celebrating the last child support check. And I was like, okay, I feel you. That's one financial obligation. Take the financial because they're 18. But you're a parent as long as they got air in their lungs. And I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand that, y'all. I couldn't. Because you don't hear people talk about the non custodial parents that want to be in their children's lives, but because the, the custodial parent knows what you don't, they've already set it up for you to fail from the first hello. This happens every day, y'all. But you know who suffers most is that child. Why don't we call a spade on that? Because that child emotional psyche is being ransomed every holiday, every birthday, every measurement of time, because guess what? Half your DNA is embedded and the other half is theirs. Who's telling their story? I'm not referring to the ones that have the track shoes on and they're running away from their lives, because sooner or later you're going to get tired of running. You're going to have a whole lot of explaining to do, starting with yourself, with the person in the mirror looking back. But the common theme has always been this. I say this to you, Mary, because you've been weeping for a long time. You've been acting out for a long time. You've been indirectly playing yourself for a long time. Say that metaphorically because you keep hearing this. If I had a dad in my life, he would have protected me from the things I didn't know. He would have educated me on what a man is. You keep hearing that. You keep seeing it play out every day on a TV set near you. How is it in 2017? You don't know who your father is. How is it in 2017? You don't know who the man was that helped you conceive that blessing. So I understand, Mary, why you're weeping. Because your pride has blinded you, baby. It's blinded you. And the cuts run deep. And that's why you're feeling numb. But truth be told, we reap what we sow. And the sooner that you have the courage to claim you, when tears gonna stop flowing. They'll stop. The peace will return. That big weight on your shoulders, you know, that spiritual backpack. And then you'll be able to pinpoint why the behaviors and emotional triggers display themselves when they do and how they do when you ground your feet. Because it's truth. Isn't that truth your story? If you don't see value in your truth, you don't have value in your life. So that you basically have you're leaving the door for anybody to come in and do whatever they want, how they want, when they want, without you complaining. But what's sad, until you can be honest with yourself, everything that you went through, yeah, you remember when he was kicking your ass? You remember when he cheated on you? Remember when she broke your heart? You remember when she gave you an STD? See, these things happen every day in a town near you, in a city near you, in a state near you, in this world. Doesn't matter the native tongue. This is human nature. So when I got back, so when I started looking at these videos, these cats was celebrating. And I'm like, okay, you happy that you don't have the responsibility, but who's going to have the responsibility of your child? Shouldn't it be you? Shouldn't it be you on the watch? Not the block? Because the block has no loyalty. The block will pimp your daughter out. It will pimp your son out. It will exploit them twice on Sunday, only to attract the next impressionable mind That's what a generational curse is. We're not protecting our babies, even from the ones that should be protecting them. And that's why, Queen, not all of you, but a lot of you, you're setting your children up for failure because you're not loving them. You're putting a price tag to the lowest bidder, and you're wondering what's going on when the rebellion comes. Because it comes. Sooner or later, that little boy is going to be taller than you. The words are not going to work. The force is not going to have any effect. And their loyalty will be to the world. It makes me wonder what our ancestors fought for, because you won't protect what is sacred. That person's a walking, talking extension of your spirit, family. Do you not realize that? Part of your spirit is in that vessel. Shouldn't you be protecting what is pure? Because that's something we don't talk about. But we get up in arms when we get the news that, oh, well, are you down like that now? This is what it is. Oh, now you want to get high and mighty, but you wasn't there to protect them. And let's get this straight. It doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't. Because a person's always going to gravitate to the environment that shows love. Did you hear me? That's what the thirst is about. That's what being the vessel is. Whatever you're not putting in it, what is lacking, it's going to gravitate to wherever's the source. It might be that pedophile. It might be that sugar daddy. It might be that sugar mom. Or it could be that abusive mate. These are stories all played out in the cemeteries, in the correctional facilities, but we don't want to look at. But if you don't know you, how can you demand that your offspring see their work when you don't? But see, that goes in one ear and then out to the Korean store, to the retail provider for temporary satisfaction for those wounds. But hear what I'm saying, you can't find peace of mind or happiness on a rack. You can't. We have marginalized and fragmented our most sacred treasure, our children. And guess what? Those pedophiles know it. And what do? They use the same things that they lack and provide. And so there's unconditional love in that. There's unconditional um, allegiance to that, because the environment was barren. So they're willing to do whatever to keep the connection there. And so is the denial. So is the manipulation. So is the pain. So let me get off my soapbox. I found out something today. So I called out to the same court system that once had my marriage certificate. I still had it. Told you it was a time capsule. Just as I had my divorce decree. I have everything. I don't throw that away. For what? It's not, trust me, it is definitely not to pay homage to a person that took advantage. No, no, no. That was a lesson learned. But there was still a blessing given. That was my daughter. So I asked about what is the process for the courts when a child is of age? Does the court system render notice? What happens since they mandate the non custodial parent, which in actuality, if unless you have ice in your veins, why wouldn't you? That's you. That's you. And to not do so, it's in vain. You basically saying their existence means not. And what happens? They run into the arms of the next abuser that will exploit them. Why you think all these women out here walking around looking like billboards? Yeah, guys do it too. Got these sleeves, got all this ink going, because every tattoo has a story. And some have been convinced to not shed a tear but shed ink instead. If you can't be vulnerable with you, how can you be vulnerable in your environment? That's why we attract who we are. So I was informed that the court system mandates the non-custodial parent of the financial obligation, but the court system is not obligated to terminate it. Did you hear that? So the the clerk was gracious enough to inform me that if I had not called, it will run to the test of time. Did you know that? Now, before you get on your high horse and say, well, you just, just make something nasty, be negative. Let me tell you something. When it comes to my daughter, I will give my last breath for her because I love her that much. And God works in mysterious ways to keep me silent and not act in haste because I know that I would have ruined my life. I probably would have lost my life if I had allowed my temperament. See, that's one thing I've learned about being a spiritual person. There's a difference between being spiritual and being religious. Let me tell you something. A spiritual person has a connection with God first. You don't need a structure because that's a structure where we assemble to express the commonality. But if you don't have the connection first, you cannot embrace what intimacy is. So therefore, you can't know you until you give that. That's your first sacrifice. Yourself. You remember, to thyself be true. How can you love thy neighbor if you're not loving you? That means you got to look at who you are inside. I'm talking a person that you too afraid to show, because that's the real you, not these made by Mattel. And this ain't shade, but that ain't you. And as long as you embrace that alter ego, you basically are saying, "Come on down for the next episode of Who Wants to Disrespect Me." That's what it's about. I love myself too much. So, in honor of my daughter and my bond, I didn't have another child. I didn't have another child. No matter how bad I wanted to, I didn't, because I was determined to heal that relationship. And I've always kept the belief that, well, there's a divine reason why she's not in your life. But one day she's gonna be there, and you'll be able to give her everything she needs. So prepare, and I've done so. Now the beautiful thing about this whole thing is I've been very fortunate to have connections with people through the years that have had children, and that has taught me to be parent, being a father too, because I've been very nurturing to the people that I've been very fortunate to have a connection with for a short period of time, or whenever God moved me to move, because I always listen, you know. But I was really, really surprised that when you think about it, the court system really doesn't have loyalty to neither person. And then it made me realize that at the end of the day, the court system is a business. The end goal is to make money, and you need people to do that. And that's why you always would hear, because you don't know the law, it's not an excuse. So I can turn around and spin it. Because you did that makes no excuse to who you are. Until you learn who you are, you're not going to know what to protect, because you're not going to know your direction. And if you don't know your direction, you're not going to know how to protect it to ensure your purpose. And that's what it's all about. Each one teach one. So, Mary, I understand, you know, but you're crying for no reason, because that's a responsibility you should not have taken on your own. And the one thing we all can agree, even in the jail system, the correctional system, the golden rule: you never harm a child. Never. You never take the innocence of a child. You don't alter it. You protect it. And that is why it's always been preached. Wait until you are an adult to have one. Have a child. It all correlates. As long as we are distracted, the longer we'll be divided. There are people that are making money off of your confusion, because they know as long as we are fragmented, that's an opportunity for them to benefit. But you can't have or speak community until you unify yourself. Because until you unify yourself, when you understand what solidarity is all about, the soul. So, does it make does it surprise you that your life is kind of hard these days? The loyalty's not there, and the pain is ever so present. You know why? Because as long as you don't do right by your children, God is not going to do right by you. Something to think about. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. And for that, it helps me discern mine. And oh yeah, King, don't get it twisted. Because you got a lot of people think that the more kids I got, the more man I am. Nah, bruh. Don't work that way. You don't become a man until you bend that knee and put God first. Mm-mm. Because I understand that because you have those people that think, well, as long as I have children, that's unconditional love because they're forced to depend on me. I can turn my focus and attention on them. No, you're hurting them. Because until you heal you, you can't give your kids or child what it rightfully needs. How about the truth? Do you know your truth? Or better yet, do you know who you are? Because if you did, you would know the importance of why you must protect it. If not, you might as well put your child outside the door for the world to do what it wants. So who really got blood on their hands? And you see it all the time. Little Ray Ray found on the street with that yellow tape. And there's always the mom sitting up there and crying. I can't believe this. You knew that. Why you fronting? It's because the fact of the matter is you failed. You failed him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been out there in them streets. Speak your truth and let go of the lie, and you'll find your peace. Be blessed.